Attention English speakers, I think I have good news for you. Being fluent doesn't mean sounding like a native speaker. Hey there, English speakers, Jesse here, and welcome. Thank you for joining me on this journey in this video series where I'm trying to show you and demonstrate to you why spending too much focus and energy on your accent and accent reduction is actually hurting you and maybe your children's English education. And let me tell you about more. We'll get into that more in this video. But first, last week we talked about, and hopefully I demonstrated that accents are cool, right? You can't have a native accent because there are so many of them. And your accent, my accent, somebody else's accent, it kind of makes who we are, right? So rather than trying to decrease your accent as a priority, maybe learn how to use your accent to your advantage, right? And we talked a little about that last week. I will put a link to that up above here so you can go back and watch the entire series. I'm also going to put a playlist together so you can watch all 5 videos in the series once I'm finished. So last week we talked about general accent reduction and how different accents are cool and beautiful and they should be celebrated to an extent, you know. And this week we're going to dive into the internal cost, right? The internal cost. What's it costing you when you focus too much on accent reduction, right? What's it costing you? What's the internal cost? What are the consequences? Because I've seen there are some internal consequences when you focus too much on your accent and you worry too much about your accent. We're going to get into that today. But first, I want to clear something up so you kind of don't misunderstand the purpose of doing this. And I don't think that accent reduction is a useless skill. It's not a useless skill. And there are many jobs where you would probably want to decrease your accent on varying degrees, right? Maybe you're a voice actor and you need a certain accent or a specific accent. Maybe you're negotiating something and you think it would be to your advantage to have less of an accent. Maybe you are doing deals on the telephone. Maybe you are a teacher and you have a strong accent and you need to decrease it a little bit, something like that. But these are very specific circumstances, and there are special teachers out there to help you specifically with your accent. I'm talking about the vast majority of English learners that kind of use accent reduction as maybe they think it's the holy grail. Do you get what I mean with that? And it's not. It's just not. And a lot of English learners and parents of English learning children, whether it's elementary, middle school, teens, high school, university, the parents specifically look for native teachers or academies with native teachers because they think it's a better education. But we're going to get in next week's lesson of why that's not true. But this week, we're going to talk about the internal cost, right? And to talk about the internal cost, we're going to have to go to how to become fluent and what is fluency, right? So when you're talking about learning a language, I see it as 3 steps that have to be in the right order. And here we're looking from down to up. We're building from the bottom up. The order of these is important. First, you need motivation. And what do I mean by motivation? I want to pass an exam? No. Right? Not like that. I want to get a job interview? No, not that. I want you to take that reason, job interview, pass an exam, enter university, speak more fluently, whatever, and ask yourself why, right? Why? We want to go down a few layers here and really get to the root cause. If it's to pass an exam, okay, that will only get you so far. if it's to pass a job interview, that'll only get you so far and then it'll stop. We want to go deeper, right? Your own personal motivation. And then you need self-belief. And I talk about this in my lessons and in my videos, that how do you find that self-belief? You find that self-belief by celebrating the small victories and having someone celebrate those small victories, so you have motivation and you have a push to get to the next level, right? Celebrate the small victories, see how far you've come, and build your self-belief and your confidence. And third, you need consistency, right? You need consistent practice, consistent contact, watching English series, watching English movies, listening to podcasts, reading, whatever your favorite method is, then do that. And take notes. Like I've said before, take notes and mark notes to learn for yourself, right? But this is how to build fluency. Hey, I'm sitting here editing this video, and I thought I'd just take a few seconds and clarify what I mean, to give a more personal example as to why I'm making the effort to speak Spanish. Okay, level 1, layer 1, because I live in Spain. Okay, but that's not enough, because there are plenty of people who live here and they can't speak Spanish, right? So, including me, some would say. But why? What's the deeper level? Well, I want to communicate. I'm tired of communicating inefficiently, right? I'm tired of finding words and expressions that kind of mean similar thing to what I want to say, right? To communicate more effectively, to be respected more, right? If you're living in a place, there's a certain level of respect or lack of respect if you don't speak the local language. And vice versa. My respect to the local people in the local language. So these are some of my layers that go a little deeper, right? To be able to communicate my message, right? And to earn respect and to show respect, right? These are my deeper reasons. I could even go deeper too, and I probably will. I'm going to take my notebook and write that down. And note, none of this has to do with learning grammar rules, doing exercises, memorizing vocabulary lists. If you take care of these 3 things in the right order, the fluency will take care of itself. I promise you. So then, considering that, what is the internal cost? What is it costing you inside when you are focusing too much on accent reduction? You're focusing on your accent. Oh, I have a terrible accent. Oh, he has a terrible accent. I'm much better than him. That happens too. And then people get this self-inflated image, and that can stop you from progressing too. But more times than not, it's, I have a terrible accent. I'm embarrassed. I don't want to talk. I'll never learn this. I'll never become fluent, right? That happens more time than not. So what is the internal cost? First, the internal cost is, well, all of these, it's stopping your progression. It's stopping your education. It's stopping your children's education, right? Because you're pushing this idea onto them. I see it so many times in the classroom, because teachers are observant. Well, some, right? Like, we see how the kids respond. We see what they do. We see what they say. We hear what they say. And so we need to be careful, because children are mirrors, right? But let's get back to the internal cost, right? First, it's like chasing a rainbow, right? You're chasing after the rainbow. You want to get to the end because you think this pot of gold called fluency is at the end of this rainbow, because you want to sound like a native speaker. Why is it a rainbow? Because it's always moving, right? Like we looked at last week, there are so many accents. Which one do you want? Which one do you want to sound like, right? And why? Ask yourself why. Because if not, you're just chasing a rainbow for the rainbow's sake, I guess, right? Because you think it sounds cool, you think that's the answer, right? What's more important is you're stealing from the bigger issues. You're stealing from more important issues about your language, right? Learning useful expressions, how we speak and what we say in certain circumstances, and maybe trying to speak better, trying to communicate more clearly. Instead of that, you're focused on your accent. And obviously, most of the time, the students become discouraged and they're engaged in self-defeat, right? They're defeating themselves. Other people aren't telling them they're terrible, right? But they're telling themselves they're terrible. You're telling yourself you're terrible because you don't sound like a native speaker and you have an accent. And when you keep telling yourself you're terrible, when you keep telling yourself you have a bad accent, that stops progress. And I see it a lot. And then a lot of the times it's an excuse to never start, right? And to stop once you did start. So the overarching umbrella, the overarching problem that I see is accent reduction. The obsession with accent reduction creates an excuse. It just creates an excuse to either as to why you haven't learned more than you have, why you haven't progressed more than you've progressed, and or why not even start. Right? It's an excuse. It's what we call a smoke screen. A smoke screen is something that's not real, like a magic trick, right? You need to break that down. You need to take that apart. And we need to stop telling ourselves this limiting belief that we can't learn a foreign language because of our accent. If you watch any of my Spanish videos, you'll see my accent is terrible. I do these video series, for one, because it's fun and it gives me extra motivation to learn Spanish. For two, to demonstrate to my students that you cannot sound great. It's okay. It's not the end of the world if you even say something embarrassing. You think I'm proud of it? Well, it kind of am, but I'm embarrassed by a lot of what I say, but I still put it up there. Why? To show my students that it's not a big deal, right? And to show that practice can lead to progression. I really see it making a difference, right? Regular practice will lead to results. Regular guided practice will lead to even more results. So that's what I wanted to share today. Just the internal cost that is costing you to focus too much. And again, accent reduction isn't a useless thing. It just has to be in the right order and if you have a specific reason. But here we go. Let's hear another nursery rhyme from our fellow teachers. As alluded to last week, we have Hickory Dickory Dock. That's what you're going to hear today. And it goes a little something like this. Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock. You know. Take it away, teachers.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse fell down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mouse ran down. Hickory Dickory Dock.
Hickory Dickory Dock.
the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, hickory dickory dock.
Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, hickory dickory dock.
Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, hickory dickory dock.
Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, hickory dickory dock.
Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1, the mouse ran down, hickory dickory dock. That's a stupid story, isn't it?
That's it. Keep teaching, keep learning. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. People are losing out on good opportunities with great teachers because of this idea that they don't have a native accent.